Hello, Amplify You. Welcome. I'm Michelle, your host, and today I am joined by a really special guest. She is a dear friend of mine, and she is an international speaker. She is a coach for women, high-achieving professional women and entrepreneurs, and she's an author of the women's book called Dynamic Women, and she is also a community leader. She was actually just nominated for a Women of Influence Award for Extraordinary Leader in the Community. She's been leading Dynamic Women, which is a women's community group. She's been leading those groups for 7 years, which I've been involved in as well. They've been amazing and really have been such a cornerstone to my success in my business as well. So I'm very excited to introduce you to the wonderful Diane Rolston, and also host of the podcast, Dynamic Women Podcast. So welcome, Diane.
Thank you, Michelle. It is a true pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, we talk about podcasting all the time, but this is the first time that we've been on an interview together. So this is great.
It's a new thing. It's good. I like it.
I love it. We were just at a mastermind in Vegas for the last few days, and the topic of podcasting kept coming up over and over and over again, and just reiterating like where the podcasting movement is going, how important it is to your business to have a show, and how hearing of some of the people that have been moving and shaking in the podcasting world for a long time aren't going anywhere, and they're in fact trying to reach billions of fans, which is pretty cool to hear. So tell us a little bit about your podcast, Diane.
Well, my podcast is called Dynamic Women, so you can kind of guess who it's for. Now, not every woman, though, thinks that she is dynamic, but the truth is that every woman is. And so the purpose of my podcast is to help dynamic women who feel dynamic, to have even more tools, more inspiration, more motivation, and more strategies to be even more dynamic. And for those that are feeling a little bit less like, I wish I was dynamic, I don't really feel that way, I'm not so confident, or whatever their definition is of dynamic, that they can actually step more into being fully themselves. You don't have to change to be dynamic, but you do need to just make a decision that you are going to be like more fully whatever characteristics that are really wonderful about you. So I do interviews with women who are dynamic, women who have now stepped into more success in not just business, but in life as well, and in any area of life.
That's cool. Now, what does being dynamic mean to you? Like, why the word dynamic? That you haven't been asked that one before.
Oh, yeah. What I noticed when I first wanted to start the live events, the community for the live events, was I really wanted to have a word that defined all women, or all people, we could even say. But when I thought at first the word confidence, I was like, okay, some women are going to think, well, I'm not really that confident, or I'd be intimidated to show up because there's going to be confident women there. And when I picked the word dynamic and started asking others, what do you think it means? I got a whole list of things, all different things. And then I got a whole list of the opposite qualities. So just for an example, I might have someone who's very creative, but someone who's analytical. Those can be seen as two opposite sides of the brain, but as dynamic women, we can be all of those qualities. We can be great listeners, but also great speakers. We can be very, giving, but also be kind of an independent leader. There's so many things that we can have on both sides. But the main thing about being dynamic that I love is that you can be a catalyst for change. So being dynamic means that you don't really feel the effects of change happening to you. You are the change. So you can create change in your life, create change in your business, create change in people around you. And so really that word will encompass all women, all people. It helps us to be an equal in any situation. Because when you start being like, oh, who I am is more important than what I do, we get to ditch the titles, because the titles confine us, they define us, they make us kind of judge other people. I even had a physical reaction to that word, I guess. And so in that way, this allows people who are further ahead in their business to connect with people just starting out. people who are older with people who are younger, people who are married with people who are single. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, screw all of these titles. I know dynamic women is a title, but it's one that finally can encompass all people.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. And, I've known you for so long, but I didn't really know what your answer was going to be to that. So that's interesting. And I like how dynamic is a word that seems to be flow and flowing with energy, and you're in constant movement, then you are a catalyst for change then. So that's really interesting. I like that. So where did it all come about, and how did it all start?
The podcast or Dynamic Women?
Dynamic Women, yeah.
Okay. My daughter was one, and I was getting back. I was like, okay, I'm going to get back into networking more. And I started showing up at events and just feeling like I was another number, that when I met people, it was so surface level and it was driving me crazy. And I thought, well, I can be pissed off about this, or I can do something about it. And so there I was, 2 a.m., lying awake in my bed being like, oh my gosh, what would I do about this? What would I do? And then I was like, start my own group.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my own group, and the name came to me that night. And then I thought, this is just what I'm going to do just for me, like one group in my local area of North Vancouver, BC, Canada. And it took off. It took off from there. And what I wanted to really do was bring to the masses, in a small area though, in one space, I wanted to bring coaching in a way that it can be accessible to everyone. But I also wanted to create deep and meaningful connections with other people, especially for women. We're relationship focused. And so what we want to do is we want to connect on that personal level, so then we can do business and life together. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I really wanted to see, because the work I was doing in my coaching and the work I was doing when I did trainings and workshops and master classes and my programs, I was noticing that not everyone was getting this, and I needed to provide it in a way that was accessible to everyone. And it just it took off from there. And then I had to coin the phrase coaching in action, because it's not one-on-one coaching. It's not a group coaching format. It's coaching in action, in the action of us being together. And so I kind of do this motion with my hand in a circle, because we sit in circle, as you know. It helps us to see each other. And the thing that annoyed me too is, as a speaker, I know when I go to an event and I speak, I'm speaking at them, and I do as much as I can to engage. But when I'm sitting in that seat, all I really want to do is to be able to connect with the other people in the room. And when I started networking, it was super uncomfortable for me. I may seem like extremely confident and extroverted, but you put me in a room with people I don't know, I just want to find the most terrified person and hang out with them. And so what I wanted to do was also create a space where women could connect with each other in a way that was a little bit more structured, so it's easy to connect on a much deeper level. Plus, rather than waiting to implement the information that they're learning and process it that they're learning from the speaker, they do it in the moment. So when they walk out of there, they've already processed it, they're already thinking about how they're implementing it, and they've created strong connections with others. I just saw a need, and I needed to fill it.
Yeah, I really appreciated how your groups, I started joining your groups when the first few months that it was around. And what I thought was different about it is that we got to connect with each other, got to learn more about each other. We ditched the titles. Plus, we were working on ourselves in our personal development and on our business at the same time as we were there in that moment. Whereas as we're busy outside of those kind of situations, we don't have time to think about these things that you really, you got us to think and get clarity around a lot of things. And then we also were able to meet all the other people in the room. By the end of the night, we've talked to everyone in the room. We had a connection with everyone in the room. We were working on something. We knew something personal about them, about their business. And I thought that was just brilliant, because it obviously has been one of my favorite networking groups, and actually the only one that I've consistently gone to for the last 7 years. And I can attribute about 90% of my business to the connections from that group, right? And that's why I kept going back, because it was a deeper kind of connection you were creating. And I think as women, we need that deeper kind of connection when we do business together.
We might have a little visitor here.
All right. Hey, little visitors. I've had little visitor all day.
Part of being a dynamic woman is balance. And sometimes, this is my second child, sometimes they come right into what you're doing, and you just need to roll with it, right, bud? You okay?
Because Daddy got home and then said, I need to do.
Okay, go downstairs and watch.
Oh, then we
Okay.
don't want to start over again.
Well, you can do that. Okay. Yes. Bailey can help you. Yep. Can you help Bodhi hook up his show downstairs in the basement? Thank you.
Billy, can you too? Mom.
There you go. And can you close my door, please? Thank you.
Billy,
Or I'll close my door. Okay.
And that's what it's like to be a dynamic woman and a mom who runs a business. I had my daughter come into an event. I had my daughter come into a call earlier today, and she jumped on my back while I was sitting talking on the online and being recorded, and then she fell off and smashed her head on the dresser. So we had to stop the call in the middle.
Wow.
We had a little accident in the middle of that call this afternoon. So.
Well, you know, it's funny because what I found is a lot of the women I work with, you know, we're working weird hours because we're still wanting to make the family a priority. Mm-hmm. And so I know that you do that quite a bit as well, as you've said. And so, you know, in the beginning, when I started running my business, I would have been absolutely mortified that they came in. I would have locked my door. I would have ignored it. And now I'm just like, whatever. It's business and it's life and it's all mixed in together. And I think what my clients appreciate about me is that there's no judgment, right? I go through it as well. And if anything, it's just a testament to, you know, also you had, is it the New Zealand president, prime minister? She was nursing. Was she in the whatever they call it there, Congress, Senate? I don't know. But this is the type of life that's real. And if we don't show it as being real, mm-hmm. then people think we're just as perfect as we are on whatever social media handle you follow, Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, you know, we're all about authenticity. And, you know, I probably won't even edit that out, that whole visit with Bodhi there. But you know what? I think that the thing is that being authentic and showing real things, I think everyone's getting so much anxiety and stress from the perfect image that everyone's portraying on social media that it gets exhausting. And it's good to show, you know, relate to more people by being real and authentic, right? And yeah, we're moms, we're busy, it's dinner time. My 2 kids and husbands are fighting out in the hallway right now. I don't know if you can hear them. And there's yelling, and there's all sorts of things going on. And that's okay.
And I even hear him crying still.
Oh, poor guy. So now the podcast came along in your business. And what do you hope to make a change with adding the podcast in? So you've got your Dynamic Women Global Club, which is a global community. You've got your coaching, and you've got your Dynamic Women in-person events. Now you're adding in the podcasting. So what was your thoughts and strategies around that? Other than me harassing you about it.
I think we might have to pause it. So I need to sort that out.
Okay, so Diane, you started a podcast this year, and I know that's after much pestering from me about starting a podcast. So I'm glad you got the podcast going. And tell us, you've got some really cool strategies around how you're recording them in conjunction with your Dynamic Women Global Club. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah. So the Global Club has many different aspects to it now. You know, it started, as I mentioned, it started off as one location. It's now multiple locations in Western Canada and Ontario, Eastern Canada, and we are looking for more growth. And so part of why I waited was because we were doing so much around membership, building the Global Club out, doing our expert trainings and all that other stuff that we're offering for our members there. But I knew it was time to do the podcast because I want to reach a larger group of people. And I know that podcasting is one of the greatest ways to be able to do that. People from many different countries. I feel a kind of an internal push to provide a space where women can be themselves and provide us mentorship, inspiration, strategies so they can get ahead. And the podcast seemed like the best platform for that. And the way I've brought it in without having it be more work, because people might think, oh, it's more work and more to do and all this. I used to, write blogs. And so now what I do is I do my podcast, and I'm a speaker. I like to speak. I like to communicate. And so it's actually much easier. I just make a brief outline. I do the podcast, then I get the transcription, and then I send it off to someone who edits it, puts it into like a nice blog form. And then that then creates the blog, then creates the social media posts, and creates everything else. And so this is something that we learned, you and I, many, many years ago. And so I've been doing it in other parts of my business. And so there's always kind of an origin of content. And so my origin of content before used to be either my blogs or when I taught workshops. But now a lot of the origin is the podcast. And then it trickles down into the other areas. So it's not more work. It's just a different way of me organizing how I do my content.
That's awesome. And then to take it even further, I know when you are interviewing guests in your Dynamic Global Club, you also do also do something really cool there. Do you want to share what that is?
Yeah, and I think originally that was your idea. And so I interview experts. I do expert trainings. So they do like a slide deck presentation on something like how to get more leads through Facebook, homeopathy. We've done them on plant-based eating, like all different things, reading body language. And so what I do is I tack on the beginning an intro 15, 20-minute interview with them. And then that piece goes, yes, to the Global Club, but also it can come over for the podcast. So my members get their really special content, but also I can share the awesome interviews with these women because they share tips in there, they share strategies and just their stories. So it's much easier because I get kind of bang for my buck there with my time, because I've got both that I'm using it for. And then when we do the femtor sessions or the female mentoring sessions, I interview them as well. And so having that content be able to be used on the podcast, gives me a break from coming up with original content every single week. And it's important that people don't just hear from me, that they hear from other women.
Yeah, and I'm sure as your experts are coming to, do a partnership with you and do a presentation to your global community, I think that's great that then they also get to be exposed to the podcast audience as well, because it could be different people. And maybe that podcast interview could inspire someone to then join the global community. So I think it's really brilliant that both of those strategies combined together was, one, saving you time, which is great, but also two, you're getting your guest experts further exposure, as well as introducing them to a new audience that could potentially then in return grow your global audience in the club too, which I think is great.
Yeah. And a lot of the women I attract, they run really successful businesses. And so they don't have time to do multiple interviews and they might not even say yes to many people, or ones that come to me. Actually I'll do both of them separately. So the ones that are super successful don't have a lot of time. They're really happy that I am pushing out their content into 2 different platforms to reach potentially 2 different audiences. And it's very seamless the way I do it. And so it's so easy for them to just show up, be in their brilliance, and then be done, and then look to share the content that I share. And then on the other side, women who are like, oh, please, can I be on your podcast? For them, they love that they get to be on 2 different platforms because, they're maybe just building their business. They've had maybe some life success. And so now they get that benefit of me pushing their content out to my followers, as well as having it, linked out through my different networks, because I've got the Diane Rolston brand and I also have the Dynamic Women brand. And there's kind of a crossover, lovely crossover that gets to happen between the 2.
And that's great. I love how you've been able to repurpose your content so well. So you're a content machine. And so for a lot of people, including myself, content creation is a struggle, like to come up with new content all the time. And so I think that's where some of us come to podcasting so that we can just interview people. Now, you've done a really good job of not just interviewing people, but also always coming up with your own content and your own teachings and your own strategies for your podcast, as well as your blogs and your courses. And so where does all this content come from? Is it living in Diane's head, or are you getting inspiration from other places?
I'm just going to pull up some of the podcast names, and that will help me to kind of share. Yeah. So I found, in the beginning, the listener wants to know, like, well, what is this podcast, or what are you doing? And so I talked about what a dynamic woman is. I then think, what are some key phrases that clients of mine say? They're like, well, I want success. And so I pulled in one around success habits for successful people. Mm-hmm. But then, as it goes on, I think, what are my clients saying? What are my clients asking? What are some situations I've seen in maybe when I'm speaking in audience members? Because afterwards they'll come up and be like, oh my gosh, you were speaking straight to me. And I'll say, well, what was it? What was your takeaway? What was that piece? And then they'll talk about that piece. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much more here I can elaborate on. One of my favorite places to write content to write the outlines for my podcast is actually on the plane. And so there's no internet. There's not much to do. Like, I could watch a movie, but I can sit there and I can bang out 8 to 10 outlines for podcasts in about 2.5 hours. And by outline, I mean like the title of it, like what would the intro be, maybe the main points that I'm going to share, and a closing. And I have those ready to go. And so some of the ones that, have come from clients might be things like being number one in whatever you're about, because people are like, well, how do I stand out? Or another one, are you taking enough chances? And actually part of that one came from me. And so I look to my own growth, the things that I'm struggling with, the things that I'm succeeding at. And I get vulnerable on the podcast. The latest one actually is, let me see, get off your butt and change your circumstances. And I say in it that I wrote this to myself. And this was around my health and the fact that I was emotional eating, because I found, when I found out my father had cancer, and I like to use past tense because I'm praying it's gone. But I emotionally ate. And as you know, like, I put on quite a bit of weight, and so that was written to me a few weeks after. No, it was written a few weeks before I got off my butt and started doing stuff. And so in the podcast, it was so funny because I wrote the outline before. And so I was like, wow, I'm already in this, but it was a nice reminder. So a lot of the podcasts I write are things that have come from my life. And I think that's important in a podcast to be more vulnerable and to share more about my experiences. I also have one called The Price You Pay for What You Want. And that's around me moving out to BC for love and being away from my family and the struggle of that, because I'm sure, people that are listening to this have had times where there's not really, you can't have, either one won't satisfy you. And so you're stuck in this hard place. And so I share that. I share my experiences. So I hope my listeners can get to know me more and won't just be dazzled by the success that I've had, but will be like, wow, she struggles too. And so I can do things as well, even though I'm struggling.
Yeah, I love that. And, it's really important to, be relatable to your audience. And I think you do a good job of that on your show by opening up and being a bit more vulnerable. And also, I really like how you've gotten some of the content from not only just your own personal life, but things that people have come up and said to you after speaking. I think that's a really great idea. Sometimes people, you don't know how you affect people because they don't share, but I like how you directly ask, what was that? Or how did I change you? And I think that's important to remember to bring those things up at the end, when we're working with clients or when we're speaking somewhere. I think those are really great ideas, really good nuggets.
Yeah. And if I can just add, when we're experts at what we do, we forget what it was like maybe either to learn it and be the student. And so we miss out on some of those first steps, the first bits of knowledge. And so we're so far removed that we don't share about that. And so it's only in that interaction with others that we can remember. And so if people are wondering, well, how do I get to that again? Well, have someone ask you, have someone sit and literally pick your brain.
Yeah.
And every single question they ask you is a blog, right? And the other thing is when we have these innate skills and talents that we know so much about, we also take it for granted that this is something that we need to teach. And then on the flip side, I also look to what makes me mad and what makes me like get fired up. And so the reason for these is we have had probably some values dishonored. And in that comes a very passionate podcast where people are really going to feel like you care. I think the worst thing is to listen to a podcast where you think the person's just reading something and they don't give a crap about the topic. So if you can tap into that, so that one around get off your butt and change your circumstances, that was for me. I needed a stern talking to.
I love that. It's like you wrote a letter to yourself about.
Kind of. But I was also mad at other people. I was mad at other people. When I meet other people and they just complain about their circumstances, like do something about it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm totally doing it myself.
I love that. And I think that looking to what your clients are asking you too, what they're coming to you looking for, another great place to find that content. There's so many gold nuggets there with you can take away from this conversation. I think just there's so many great places to look, things that you're getting stuck in your life around, things that you're struggling with, and remembering back to the beginning what it was like, because a lot of your clients will be maybe not even, haven't even started their business yet. Maybe they're just thinking about it and they're going to be inspired by your story, or maybe they're a new mom and be inspired by those stories of how Diane started her business with a baby and soon later pregnant again. And those were the first few years of your business. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that was for you?
Well, I did my coaching certification while I was working a 9-to-5, and I signed up and then I got pregnant. And so I'm working a 9-to-5 doing my certification and I'm pregnant. And so I basically got certified, I think 3 weeks before my daughter was born. And so I was coaching people while I was working, while I was pregnant. And so it was intense. I'll tell you that for sure. It's not for everybody. You have to be able to handle it. And I also suffered from postpartum depression, which I tried to coach myself through because I didn't realize it was depression from the hormones and being pregnant. And so it was a struggle. I'll say that for sure. And so part of that is why I think I resonate a lot with, and my clients who are females resonate a lot with me, because I've been able to have the business. I think I took 3 weeks off because it was Christmas and New Year's. Both my kids were born like December 9th, December 12th. So I coached the day I went into labor with my daughter on the 11th. I coached that morning, and then that night I had her. And then 3 weeks later, like January 3rd, I started again. And that's just my style, but it's not for everyone. And so figuring out what pregnancy what pre-pregnancy looks like in someone's business, how to plan in a pregnancy, and then how to adjust to life with a newborn, and then to have a baby and a toddler and to still be running a business. And I have no family here. They're on the East Coast. And that's where that whole, like, what I was saying about being, stuck between these two places, you figure it out. You totally figure it out, but having someone there to support you. So having a community of women to support you, like the Global Club, having a coach to support you. I had coaches along the way, was really important for me because it was hard and extremely rewarding. And I wouldn't have had it any other way, because to be able to hike every morning with my kids strapped to me, and then to get home and coach clients, I just was fulfilled in all ways.
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting how as moms, as we have babies and still trying to do business, I had a business prior to baby, but it was a different business than after baby. And it's an interesting thing how, wow, it was a lot easier before baby to have a business. But I thought the business was busy then. And then you add the baby and it's like, holy crap. And like you went back right away too. And it was something I just recognized in myself not that long ago, looking back over the last few years, that like the podcasting actually, I think, really helped pull me out of the path I was going down through postpartum depression, because I was then being motivated and inspired by the shows that I was listening to. And it made me excited to get back into working with clients and getting, so it kind of the podcasting that really pulled me right back out of there again. So I was really excited to, and I didn't put those things together until just recently. Oh, we're having some crazy.
Yeah.
There we go.
And the thing with it, and I know this is not a baby show, but prepare. And so I was doing videos. I was doing video blogs, which again, now I would have done a video blog that became a podcast, that became a blog, but I was doing video blogs and I pre-recorded, 15, 20 of them to get me through that time when I didn't want to have to be like, oh, what am I going to talk about? I need a blog today and I've got puke in my hair and I haven't showered in 3 days. And what am I going to talk about? And my kid's crying. Like I didn't want to do that. So I pre-recorded. And so the benefit of the podcast is it's not a Facebook Live. It is not a masterclass that you're running live. You can do it on your own terms, on your own time. And so pre-recording a ton of podcasts is possible to get you through a house move, a child's wedding, like whatever is going on, surgery you need to have. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is like be in the hospital having to record a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's the great thing about podcasting. You've got that time and space and the energy to pre-do things along the way. And so with that, Diane, tell us one more last little nugget of inspiration. There's a crazy storm outside right now, so I think my Wi-Fi is starting to disappear here. So tell us one more thing about going forward with the podcast. What are you hoping to accomplish with your podcast in your business?
The podcast gives people their maybe first experience with me and a first introduction to dynamic women. And what I'm really hoping, on a business front, but also on a personal mission front, that I can reach more women. And these women will then be inspired to join the Dynamic Women community, the Global Club, because in joining the Global Club, they're going to meet a ton other like-minded women. We are supportive, we are inspirational, and there are too many negative places in the world where people don't feel like they belong. And the number one limiting belief, according to research done by Brene Brown, is I am not enough. But when women come together in the environment that I create, they feel enough. They feel more than enough. They feel inspired. They feel connected. They see how others see them. And so my hope is that women will listen to the podcast. They'll tell their friends. They'll join the Global Club, because my big dream is that no woman will feel like she's not part of something bigger. And, there's so many issues with lack of gender parity. We're not getting paid the same. We're not putting our hands up for bigger promotions. There's more men named John in CEO roles than all women combined. Like, that's BS. And so what I see for this community is that women will come together, will form this really big community in all these kind of pods in all these different areas. And with this kind of global reaching more places, that the message will continue that who you are is more important than what you do, and that women will step forward and will be fully in their brilliance. That's my goal.
And now there's no better time for that than now, I think. So thank you, Diane, and thank you for putting all this time and effort into building this community. And I know I've benefited from it, and I can't wait to see it reach the impact that have the ripple effect that you want it to have, because it will. Yeah. And it's just getting there. So thank you for joining us today on the Amplify You podcast. Enjoyed your nuggets, and I can't wait to have an update down the road from how your podcast is is helping you reach your goal in spreading your message of women are enough.
Yeah, thank you. And I trust that the listeners that are hearing our interview today will take something from it. And I'd love it if they could even reach out to me and let me know what the one nugget was that they took away, or the one thing that they connected to. And if they, for those women that are like, tell my story, Diane, interview me, Diane, put me on your podcast, Diane, have me be an expert trainer, Diane, or I want to join your global club, like reach out. I'm just an email away, or you can search. I'm sure you're going to drop some links in there.
Yep, we'll drop the links where to find you. Where would you like them to go to contact you, on Facebook or email?
They can go through, I'm like, do I give my personal email? Adding me on social media or messaging me on social media is great. Or you can email info@dianerolston.com. I think that's a really great way to do it. And just put in the subject line whatever you want to talk about, so that Kate, my assistant, when she goes through it, she can connect you in the right way with me.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll
Sounds good. And Diane is at Dynamic Women on Facebook, and Diane Rolston Coaching on Facebook as well. So reach out to her and send her some love and let her know what you learned and what nuggets you got from this show. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.